Please welcome Jos Akkermans.
I want to talk with you today about career success. How do we become successful in our careers? And I'm going to start with a quick question to all of you. Raise your hand if it's important to you to become successful in your career. Almost everyone instantly raises their hands. So it's an important topic. But realize this is a very complicated question. I'm asking you about, is it important for you to be successful in your career? What is that even, career success? And instantly, hands up, everyone knows something. You have all kinds of ideas and images about what career success is. That's the gist of this. Not about how many people, but the fact that you're immediately able to think of something. If you go online, if you search for career success, you will find thousands and thousands of pictures of people in business suits, smiling, high-fiving each other, doing fist bumps, or climbing mountains, and of course, climbing the ladder, reaching the top. The ultimate pinnacle of career success, that desirable outcome all the way at the top of the mountain or the ladder or whatever. So there's a lot of imagery, a lot of metaphors about what career success is. I want to talk with you about two examples, some of my friends. Here's one. She's a full professor at this university. In fact, she just this afternoon accepted her chair in the Future of Work Design. I just came from her inaugural lecture. This is someone who passed her PhD with a distinction of cum laude. She started a research topic that gained traction globally, thousands upon thousands of citations, and she's generally considered to be one of the main experts in the world on her research topic. That's one. Here's another one. I have two friends. They're entrepreneurs. They have their own business. They have a store where they sell kitchen appliances and audio-visual equipment like televisions. The store's been in the family for a long time. They took over from parents. The store is doing perfectly well. They're making sure they stay up to date with all kinds of developments, like having an online shop as well, for example, a few years ago. Maybe they could expand their business. Probably they could. Probably they could hire extra personnel as well, but they don't. Because for them, growing even further is not their priority. They want to work so they can have a good life outside of work as well, with their kid and with the rest of their family and friends. And my question to all of you, and you don't have to answer it, but just consider this for a few seconds, is who is more successful in their career? My friend, the full professor, or my friends, the entrepreneurs? Let's take a few steps back. I'm a researcher, so I like to define stuff. So let's define some stuff. Let's first define what a career is. In research, we typically define a career, and here's a complicated definition for all of you, as the evolving sequence of work-related experiences over time. In short, it's the accumulation of anything you do that relates to your work. This means that if people change jobs or change occupations, they don't change careers, because both are still part of the same career, right? Everything you do across your life from the moment you start working to the moment you stop working is part of that career. By extension, this means that career success is about the desirable outcomes and achievements related to that career, related to all of those work-related experiences. There's two types of career success that we typically distinguish. The first one is the classic perspective on career success. It's the thing that most people will think about when you say career success. It's what we call objective career success, and we call it that way because it's verifiable by other people, and it's relatively objective. For example, the status you obtain, the advancement you make in an organizational hierarchy, so the number of promotions you get, the salary increases you obtain, right? These are pretty straightforward things that other people can see and they can assess your career success, objective career success. That's one perspective. The second perspective is what we call subjective career success, and this is more intrinsic. It's about my own emotions, my own attitudes, my own perceptions regarding, do I think I'm successful in my career? And here you can think about things like, do I have meaningful work? Do I have work that makes an impact that matters to me, to society? Do I have a good work-life balance? And am I satisfied with the progress I'm making on my career goals? Now, these two types of career success, they can go hand in hand, right? Kind of makes sense. If you get a few promotions, you'll be happy about your career progress. But they don't have to. People have studied the correlations between the two. They're not that high. They're actually surprisingly low. So it's not necessarily the case that if you make a lot of promotions or get a lot of money, that you're also happy with that career. And conversely, you can be perfectly happy in a career without advancement, vertical advancement. Okay. So now we've defined stuff. What a career is, what career success is, what objective and subjective career success is. Of course, the reason you're here to listen to my story is not to learn what career success is, but how to become successful. How can you influence your own career success? It's important to almost all of you. You immediately raised your hands at the beginning. You're in luck, because I just finished, with 2 colleagues from the US, I just finished a literature review study where we picked up all the literature on career success, and I can tell you, it's a lot. And we took a critical look, and one of the things we explored is, what do we really know about the predictors of career success? In other words, how can you become successful? I have 3 conclusions for you, and I'll start with the most depressing one. I'm sorry. There's quite a few predictors of career success that as an individual, you can't really control that much. For example, there's clear evidence that certain personality traits, so our natural inclination towards certain behaviors, predicts career success. People who are naturally more conscientious or more organized, more extroverted, more sociable, more proactive, more inclined to take charge, take initiative, to solve things, they advance more quickly in their career. So they are typically more successful more quickly. And we know that personality can change over time, but slightly. And it's not like you can go to an extroversion training tomorrow and suddenly be super extroverted, right? So in that sense, becoming successful is easier for some people than for others. You need a bit of luck with your DNA. But there's other factors that you can't influence that much. For example, gender and ethnicity. There's compelling evidence that generally women experience lower levels of career success than men. They still get paid much less for the same work. There's also evidence that ethnic minorities experience lower career success. And there's evidence that blue-collar workers, so the more practically schooled workers, have fewer opportunities for advancement and career success than white-collar, more theoretically schooled workers. Now, on a societal level, of course, these are issues that we can solve, and we should solve. On a personal level, there's not that much you can do about it. So, I'm sorry, but conclusion 1, some of the predictors of career success are out of your hands. Conclusion 2, this is a bit of a double-edged sword one. Career success is a social, strategic, and even political thing. In research, we call this the sponsored mobility perspective. It means you're mobile in your career, you advance in your career through sponsorship. In other words, through knowing the right people. We know, there's clear evidence, that people tend to be more successful in their careers if, for example, they have good relations with the key decision makers. The good news about that, that's why it's a double-edged sword, there's a good and a bad side. The good thing about it is it's somewhat under your control, right? If you know who the people are that make the decisions about your potential promotion, you can just make sure they start to like you, or at least build relationships with them. Because we know that people tend to make favorable career decisions for people they like and who are more like them. That's a bias. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it's there. The other side, maybe the downside of this, of course, is that, what about fairness? Is it fair that the person who is most liked by the manager or the decision maker gets promoted versus perhaps the most hardworking or most competent person? And how would your colleagues feel about that, right? If they feel that maybe they should have gotten their promotion, but you got it because, well, you sucked up to the boss. So here's the double-edged sword thing. You can control it, make sure that you strategically network, but then again, what about fairness? What about your relationships with the colleagues? That's conclusion 2. It's a strategic, even political thing. I've kept the best for last. The third conclusion is a very hopeful one, Because I can tell you, after all these decades of research on career success, it is very clear, hard work pays off. Investing in knowledge development, skill development, becoming an expert in what you do, means that you're more likely to be successful in your career, right? So, significant part of becoming successful, both objectively and subjectively, is something that you can take charge on. It's something that you can control. For example, there are all kinds of career-related competencies that you can develop. Being good at reflecting on your skills, your purpose. Being good at building professional networks. Being a good communicator about what you're good at so other people can recognize those skills. Being able to set goals and seek and pursue opportunities. These are all skills and behaviors that can help you become more successful in your career. So that's the good news. But we're also talking about shaping tomorrow today. And there's one final thing that we haven't really discussed, and that's that work and careers are also rapidly changing. Careers are becoming longer. Retirement age is increasing almost everywhere. They're becoming more dynamic. People are changing jobs and occupations more than ever before. They're also becoming more complex. The rate of change is unprecedented, right? Digitalization, automation, think of the rise of AI. Everything's changing super fast. Jobs will appear, jobs will disappear. It means that careers are also changing. And in our research, what we argue is that because of these changes, because of these longer, more challenging careers, we should not only look at our career success today, but we should look at our career success over time. Not just are you successful today or even tomorrow, but can you build a career that allows you to build up and renew your resources instead of depleting them, which can lead to dropping out and burning out. And so we call that sustainable careers. How can you build a sustainable or sustainably successful career? And there are 3 key indicators of career sustainability, and they're easy to remember. Happiness, health, productivity. Happiness, health, and productivity. So in general, it's important, if you want to have a sustainable career, to be successful over time, you need to generally like what you do at work. You need to make sure that you can continue doing it over time, both mentally and physically. And you need to be good at it. And all 3 are important. They're often studied in isolation, but all 3 together are critical. Because if you're a star performer, you get one promotion after the other, huge salary increases. But that requires you to work 80, 90, 100 plus hours a week, every week, years after each other. At some point, you will lose all those resources and just be completely exhausted and burn out. That is not very sustainable, I can tell you. But conversely, if you jump out of bed every day with a huge smile on your face, thinking, I love my job, but you are absolutely horrible at that job, you get fired. That's not very sustainable either. So all 3 are important. It's about happiness, health, and productivity. And of course, no one expects you to have 10 out of 10 all the time, right? It's perfectly viable and acceptable that at some point, maybe one is higher and the other is lower. If you're almost up for that promotion or you almost get that permanent contract that you've been trying to get, it makes perfect sense that maybe for a short time you sacrifice a bit of happiness for a bit of productivity. Maybe you don't do the social fun stuff in the weekend and you continue working so you make sure that you get that promotion or that contract. But then afterward, you can also rebalance, right, by recovering and maybe being slightly less productive for a while. Or people who have children and they are maybe less productive for a while because they want to enjoy the new family. And then once they come back and they rebalance their situation, they can become super productive again. That's fine, as long as you're aware of the balance between those 3. Now let me get back to my initial example in question of my friends, the full professor and the entrepreneurs. I don't know about you, but here's my answer. Who's more successful? Neither. They're both very successful. But they're successful in their own ways. And whereas the first example of the full professor is perhaps more of the classic example of career success, who is advancing all the time, who is a worldwide expert on what she does, my entrepreneur friends are also successful because they're experts at what they do, they make a very good living, and they make very deliberate decisions about having a good work-life balance that allows them to also enjoy life outside of work. And for many entrepreneurs, that's a huge challenge to establish that balance. So they're happy, they enjoy what they do, they're healthy, they make sure they do their work in a way that allows them to continue doing it, and they're productive because they're very good at what they do. So I will leave you with one final question, and you don't have to answer it, but you can take this home with you. What about you? What about all of you? What makes your career successful in a sustainable way? What would you need to accomplish that? And if you can start thinking about that and become aware of that, then that's the first step towards realizing that sustainably successful career. Thank you.